I saw Chloe's social media post while I was trying on my wedding dress. She sat with her chin resting on her hand under the warm glow of a yellow light. In front of her was the latest Chanel handbag and a Cartier bracelet. Her caption read, "Loving someone is like tending to a flower. Long-legged uncle says I'm his carefully nurtured little rose." Chloe was the financially struggling student that my boyfriend Jason had been sponsoring. And she always referred to him as long-legged uncle. That post of hers hit me like a punch. I stared at it for a few seconds before snapping out of it. I picked up Jason's phone that was next to me and opened his Moments feed. Chloe's post wasn't there. But when I checked her Moments from my own phone, the post was still visible. It hadn't been deleted. That left only two possibilities. 1. Chloe had hidden that post from Jason. 2. She had posted it so that only I could see it. Which one was it? I furrowed my brows and thought about it, then casually tapped into the message history between Jason and Chloe on his phone. They hadn't messaged much, just a few holiday greetings here and there. Most of them were Chloe sending seasonal wishes, with Jason responding politely. It all looked perfectly normal. In fact, it was so normal it seemed overly formal, and that made it feel oddly suspicious. I tapped my fingers thoughtfully. Just then, Jason stepped out of the fitting room. He was wearing a dark navy custom Armani suit that hugged his frame perfectly, tailored in a sharp British cut. His tie was a bold shade of red, and on his feet were handcrafted Italian leather shoes. He looked absolutely dashing. As he adjusted the diamond cufflinks on his sleeves, he looked at me and asked, "How do I look?" "Not bad," I replied, "but you don't really look that different from usual." He chuckled. "Well, it's our wedding. It only happens once in a lifetime. I'd like to look a little more impressive." As he admired himself in the mirror, he happened to catch sight of me holding his phone through the reflection. He laughed. "Doing a little spot check? Find anything?" He came over and leaned in closer. When he saw I was reading his messages with Chloe, his smile froze for just a second, but he quickly recovered, his expression calm again, even joking around with me. "You look so serious. Don't tell me you actually found something?" "No," I said, handing the phone back to him. I asked offhandedly, "You and Chloe don't really talk much?" "We're not that close. What would we even talk about?" he replied, looking completely at ease, without a trace of guilt. I watched him quietly for a few seconds, then asked seriously, "Didn't you sponsor her for years? And just recently you asked me to help her find a mentor. How is that not close?" "Well, yeah," he said. "I did sponsor her for several years. That's why I care a bit about her academic path. You know her grades are decent, but she comes from that kind of background. She doesn't know many people. So I have to help her find a good opportunity." I nodded. "That makes sense." His explanation was flawless, so convincing that it made me feel like I was being unreasonable, like I was looking for problems where there weren't any. Without solid evidence, I decided not to act rashly. With that decision made, I didn't want to keep going with the topic, but Jason quietly studied me for a while, then suddenly smiled. "What's this? Are you actually jealous?" "No," I said, denying it. Then I suddenly remembered something and told him. "About the thing you asked me to do, getting my advisor to take her on," I asked him. Jason looked at me intently, his eyes so gentle they could overflow with spring water. I continued, "But their research interests don't really match, so he won't be taking her. Next time you see her, just let her know and apologize on my behalf." "No worries," he said with a small smile, looking like he truly didn't care. "I just asked you to mention it in passing. Your advisor's a big shot. Of course he wouldn't accept students lightly. I wasn't really expecting much." After saying all that, he seemed to realize he might have over-explained, so he smoothly shifted the conversation back to me. "Which wedding dress do you like better?" Jason asked. "The first one, the very well mermaid style, or the second one, the rhinestone-studded Toranovius?" "Honestly, I think you look great in both," he added. "Why don't we just get them both? One for the ceremony, one for the reception." As soon as he finished speaking, the sales assistant let out a gasp of admiration. "Sir, you have excellent taste. These two are actually our boutique's signature gowns. The bride looks stunning in both of them." She turned to me with envy shining in her eyes. "Miss, your husband treats you so well." I listened to them talking, but I didn't feel any real joy. For some reason, I suddenly felt emotionally distant. I had been genuinely excited earlier while trying on wedding dresses, but now all I felt was wariness. So I said to Jason, "You decide." Jason didn't seem to notice anything off about my tone and continued enthusiastically. "All right, let's go with that. Then let's head over to check out the mixed-race models." I cut him off. "Didn't you say earlier one of your junior lab mates mentioned there's a research group meeting? I need to head back to the lab now." "But I already reserved a table for us at Soirée tonight," he said. Soirée was a French restaurant known for its romantic atmosphere and expensive pricing. I forced myself to smile. "Sorry, but you know how it is. These group meetings are mandatory. Just cancel the reservation." Jason clearly looked a little disappointed but got up and said, "I'll drive you." "No need. The subway is right nearby. It's convenient. You driving me will just mean getting stuck in traffic." He seemed to accept that as reasonable. Jason leaned in, gave me a hug, and kissed me on the cheek. "Be safe on your way, all right?" I nodded, stood up, and left. Of course, there was no group meeting. I had just made that up on the spot. So instead of heading to the lab, I went straight to Soirée. I chose a discreet corner seat that still gave me a clear view of the entrance. Maybe it was seeing that social media post earlier, but something inside me had clicked. I had this inexplicable feeling, like I would find the truth here tonight. Around dinner time, Jason appeared at the entrance in full formal attire. Beside him was a girl whose smile bloomed like a flower. She looked nothing like the simple, shy, underprivileged girl I remembered. It was Chloe, her arm wrapped tightly around Jason's, clinging to him with easy affection. Jason's expression was neutral, but he didn't pull away. His body language said he was used to her touch, comfortable with it. The two of them were seated at the best scenic table in the restaurant. Candlelight flickered on their table, casting a soft glow over their meal. Then, suddenly, Chloe stood up and kissed Jason on the cheek. Jason's face instantly darkened. He looked irritated, darting quick glances around the room like he was afraid someone might have seen. Chloe's joyful expression quickly faded. She gave an awkward, apologetic smile and said something I couldn't hear. Jason sighed, then reached out and gently patted her on the head. At that moment, everything felt meaningless. I couldn't figure out why I was even there. What was the point of watching this clumsy performance? I might as well go back to the lab and get some real work done. So I left and returned to the lab. It was nearly 10 p.m. when I arrived, but surprisingly, most of the junior researchers were still there. Everyone really was grinding themselves into the ground, and seeing that actually gave me a little motivation. I didn't think about Jason or Chloe anymore. My mind was clear, fully immersed in my experiment. Because I was so focused, the experiment went unusually smoothly. By the time I looked up again, it was already past 1 a.m. I stretched, deciding to call it a night. When I picked up my phone, I saw several WeChat messages, every one of them from Jason. "Did your group meeting end? Want me to come pick you up? Still busy? I miss you." There were also a few voice and video messages. "Looks like you're really swamped. I'm going to sleep. Don't stay up too late. Love you. Good night." All of those messages had been sent tonight. If I hadn't seen with my own eyes the intimate scene between Jason and Chloe earlier, I might have actually felt guilty toward him. Anyone reading those messages would probably believe that Jason was a devoted and affectionate boyfriend, patiently waiting for his busy girlfriend to have a free moment. I felt a wave of physical nausea. I didn't reply to him. Instead, I opened Moments. Sure enough, Chloe had posted again. A 3x3 grid of photos clearly taken tonight at Soirée. The first 8 pictures were of the ambiance and dishes. Only the final photo showed a man's hand across the table. It was pale and slender, and on his ring finger was the plain platinum band Jason and I had bought together as matching rings. Chloe's caption was, once again, vague and poetic. "The person before my eyes is the one in my heart." I replied to her post with a message, "Congrats on the new relationship." Then I added 3 smiling emojis. After I sent that reply, I went straight to bed. Early the next morning, a phone call woke me up. It was from Chloe. "Hey, Sienna, do you have a moment? I'd like to talk to you about something." I was a little surprised she reached out to me first, but then again, if she truly wanted to hide everything from me, she wouldn't have posted something so blatantly obvious on her feed. Sooner or later, we were going to have this conversation. I hesitated for only a second, then answered, "Sure. Where do you want to meet? How about I come find you around 10? All right." Just then, I heard Jason's voice faintly through the phone. "Who are you talking to?" Chloe suddenly sounded flustered. "Okay then, let's say it's settled," she said quickly and hung up before I could respond. I glanced at the time on my phone. 7:15. Still early. The fact that Jason was already with Chloe this early in the morning made it clear they hadn't even spent the night apart. I smiled faintly, tossed my phone aside, and went back to sleep. But I'd stayed up too late with last night's experiment, so that nap turned into full-blown sleep. I didn't wake up until 9:40. Chloe had already sent me a WeChat message saying she was downstairs at my dorm waiting for me. I quickly freshened up, threw on a clean outfit without much thought, and headed out as soon as I was presentable. As soon as I stepped out of the dorm building, I saw her. Chloe was standing with her back to me, wearing a little black dress with Miami printed across it. She carried the Chanel handbag she had flaunted on social media, and the Cartier bracelet gleamed on her wrist. It was clear she had put serious effort into her appearance. There was no trace left of the modest, nervous girl I once knew. I had to admit, Jason had really taken good care of her. I quietly studied her for a moment before calling out, "Chloe?" She turned to look at me, clearly having braced herself for this confrontation. Her expression was challenging, like she was determined to prove something. But the second her eyes landed on me, she froze. I had rushed out without any makeup, my hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and wore black-rimmed glasses. Compared to her polished, full-glam look, we were night and day. Her expression flickered with a flash of satisfaction, though she tried not to show it. Instead, she put on a friendly face, linked her arm through mine, and called me cheerfully, "Sienna." I pulled my arm back and got straight to the point. "Why did you want to talk to me?" I expected her to come clean, or maybe even tearfully confess how difficult her feelings for Jason had become. But she didn't do either. She simply smiled and said, "I wanted to ask about your advisor. Didn't Jason tell you?" "He did. I already told him my advisor's not taking on new students." "I know," she said, "but I heard that if you have the right connections, it's possible to intern in your lab over the summer. Sienna, could you help me out? If I get the chance to work closely with your advisor, I believe he'll take me on eventually. I don't mind waiting another year. If I can get into his lab, it'll be worth it." I looked at her, fully aware of what she was doing. Those two cryptic but pointed posts on her feed had been aimed at me. So she had to know exactly what I thought of her by now. I couldn't help but think, anyone with even the slightest sense of decency, anyone else would have avoided me after something like that. But not Chloe. She was clearly out to provoke me. Even if there wasn't an opportunity, she'd find a way to create one just to be around me. That kind of behavior seriously disgusted me. So I told her directly, "I'm not going to help you." "Why not, Sienna?" "You know exactly why." I looked her straight in the eyes, "and being in the same lab with you would make me uncomfortable, so don't come to me again, we're not that close." In the end, I didn't spell it all out. People were walking by, and I figured I'd let her keep the last shred of dignity. I thought that would be the end of it. But the next day, I saw Chloe in the lab. She was personally brought in by the associate advisor. When she looked at me, she smiled brightly, boldly. "Sienna, we meet again." As she passed by me, she leaned close and whispered in a voice only the two of us could hear, "Sorry, even if you don't want to see me, you'll still be seeing me around often." Then she added, "Sienna, even if you won't help me, Jason will take care of it for me." I didn't know exactly what kind of expression I was making, but it couldn't have been pleasant, because Chloe's smile widened. It was full of smugness and provocation, with a sense of total confidence and superiority, like she'd already won. In her eyes, she was the victor, and I was the one left humiliated and defeated. Suddenly, it all felt pointless. I stood up and walked out for some air. Out in the hallway, where no one else was around, I lit a cigarette. I'd only taken 2 drags when Chloe showed up. She must have followed me, This was a smoking area, but I knew she didn't smoke. That was confirmed when she opened her mouth with a mocking tone. Didn't expect you to be a smoker, Sienna. Does Jason know? He really hates the smell of cigarettes, doesn't he? He knows, I said flatly. He even buys them for me. I couldn't be bothered to engage further. Jason had always had a sensitive nose. He hated the smell of smoke. I knew that. But ever since starting my PhD, the pressure from research had been overwhelming. Smoking was the only way I could relieve some of it. Whenever I saw Jason, I'd always spray perfume to cover up the scent. But he could still tell. He never told me to quit. Instead, he quietly started buying cigarettes for me. He even said I didn't have to force myself to use scented sprays. He was fine with it. He told me he understood how much I loved my field, and if the pressure ever became too much, I could always lean on him. He'd be my support. Looking back, my feelings for Jason had probably taken root in those quiet, respectful, and thoughtful gestures. But clearly I'd misjudged him. I was momentarily lost in thought. Chloe was still talking, chattering nonstop in my ear, but I barely registered what she was saying. Just then, Jason called. Right in front of Chloe, I answered and put it on speakerphone, cutting off her voice mid-sentence. Jason's voice came through soft and affectionate, with a playful sweetness. My girlfriend's finally done for the day, huh? I replied. Any chance you'd be willing to honor me with your company tonight? It's been 2 whole days since I saw you. I miss you like crazy. Come on, just say yes. Consider it a date with your very devoted boyfriend. Jason's voice was dripping with charm, almost childlike in its flirtation, so unlike the sharp, polished investment banker he usually was. Chloe must have never seen this side of him before. Her expression froze completely. Then her face darkened, and her hand clenched into a tight fist. The smile on her lips disappeared. But I didn't feel pleased. Not at all. Getting caught in this absurd, senseless battle, whether I win or lose, just makes me feel like I've already failed. So it's time to end it. No matter how good the past was, how beautiful the little moments were, once it's tainted, it's not something worth clinging to. I took a deep breath and said to him, okay, but I'll choose the place. I'll pick you up tonight then. No need. I'll go myself. All right. Then it's a date, don't stand me up, he said cheerfully. I didn't wait for him to finish before hanging up the call. When I looked up, I was staring straight into Chloe's smiling face. She seemed to have fully reset her emotions, wearing that harmless, innocent girl look again. She even said to me, Sienna, you and Jason have such a sweet relationship, I'm so envious. I looked at her calmly. Her smile was wide, but her eyes were filled with provocation. She was clearly hoping I'd lose my temper and lash out at her. Too bad I had no intention of giving her what she wanted. So I smiled, keeping my tone bright and clear. Some things are just inborn. You can't envy your way into them. Chloe's smile instantly faded. That finally lifted my mood a little. That evening, I went to the same restaurant where Jason and I had had our very first date. I reserved a table by the window. We had agreed on 6 p.m., and I arrived 10 minutes early. Just as I sat down, a message from Jason popped up on WeChat. Sweetheart, a meeting just came up. I might be about 30 minutes late. I didn't reply. I simply pulled out my iPad and started reading academic papers. By the time I got to the second article, Jason walked through the door holding a bouquet of delicate cappuccino roses. His face was lit up with a soft, affectionate smile as he handed me the flowers. Sorry I'm late. I didn't take the bouquet. I glanced at the time on my iPad. He was only 10 minutes late. If there really had been a meeting, there's no way he would have gotten here this quickly. So I smiled and asked, Your meeting ended that fast? He smoothly placed the bouquet beside me, still smiling like usual. When I saw you didn't reply, I was afraid you were mad, and I didn't want you to wait too long. So I pushed through it, kept things short, skipped the chit-chat, trimmed the agenda, still ended up 10 minutes late. I glanced at the bouquet. The wrapping was elegant, the roses fresh, clearly thoughtfully prepared. You were that busy and still had time to pick up flowers? I ordered them right after our call, he said, watching me. His tone was light and teasing, but his eyes were searching. Why do I feel like I'm being interrogated tonight? I really did have a meeting. He pulled out his phone and opened his team chat group. Look, they're following through with everything we just discussed. I glanced at his phone. It was true. The messages showed his team coordinating tasks based on his instructions from earlier. He really had been in a meeting. But once the crack of distrust forms, it spreads like water through stone. I didn't believe him anymore. I let out a quiet sigh. I had originally planned to wait until after dinner to bring it up, but seeing him now, I realized there was no reason to delay. So I got straight to the point. Jason, let's break up. His smile froze immediately. It was like he hadn't heard me clearly. After a long pause, he finally asked, cautiously, "Is it because I was late today? You're mad?" "I'm sorry. Please don't be upset, okay?" he added with a slightly pouty tone, almost like he was trying to act cute. Then his voice turned aggrieved, almost sulky. "But joking about breaking up, that's a bit much. You'll scare me. Don't ever joke like that again." I had to admit, that whole act he just pulled, being sweet, gentle, apologetic, was perfectly executed. He managed to come across as both considerate and wronged, while still making it clear where he stood. Classic Jason, a man born for the negotiation table. He knew exactly how to tug at someone's heartstrings. But what he didn't know was that this time, he had crossed my bottom line. His tricks wouldn't work on me anymore. "I'm serious," I said. Jason fell silent for a long time. He stared into my eyes, trying to determine whether I was bluffing. When he saw I wasn't, his expression finally shifted, growing solemn. "Why?" he asked, voice cold. "Give me a reason." He was no longer playing the sweet boyfriend. In an instant, he had switched into the elite investment banker who never missed a beat at the negotiating table, sharp, intense, and pressing. I didn't intend to hide it from him. "Chloe?" His face changed in an instant. But the next second, he composed himself again. "What about Chloe?" he asked, feigning calm. "What did she do?" "She showed up in my lab. You arranged that, didn't you?" "Oh, that," he said, visibly relieved. "Yes, that was me." He admitted it so quickly and easily that it caught me off guard. "You know I've been sponsoring her. She's finally shown some real motivation, wants to learn under Professor Fu in your lab. So I helped her out. You're not seriously angry about that, are you?" Then he added, still playing the concerned boyfriend, "Look, if it really bothers you, if you don't want to work in the same lab with her, I'll just tell her not to go. Is that okay?" He said it all so sincerely. But I was beyond stunned. I stared at him, dumbfounded. "Just tell her not to go?" I repeated, laughing in disbelief. "And she'll actually listen to you? That's how much she listens to you?" "I'm her sponsor," he said plainly. "She'll do me this favor. I'll even compensate her, help her find a new advisor, maybe a different lab to study in." He leaned in, softening his voice. "Sienna, you're my girlfriend. You're the most important person in my life. I won't do anything that makes you unhappy." It all sounded so righteous, so heartfelt, but to me, it was nothing but mockery. "Jason," I said quietly, "I realize now I never really knew you at all." "Sienna? I used to think you were just greedy, a little selfish, maybe not courageous enough to own up to things, but now I see I was wrong." His eyes widened. "Sienna, what are you saying? You're scaring me. What's going on?" He started to rise from his seat, trying to reach for me, but I raised my voice and stopped him. "Don't come any closer." The force in my tone made the entire restaurant go silent. Everyone turned to look. Jason flushed, deep red, clearly not used to being humiliated like this. But he still wouldn't give up. He looked at me with a pained expression, eyes wide and pleading. "Sienna, what's wrong? What did I do to upset you? Just tell me." His performance was so good, I almost had to laugh. I took a deep breath to calm myself, then said slowly, "You know exactly what you did. I thought you were just greedy and weak, that you lacked a sense of responsibility, but now I realize I completely misjudged you. Sienna, can't we just talk about this like adults? Please, just tell me clearly what this is really about." "Fine," I said. "Let's be clear then." I took out my phone, opened Chloe's Moments feed, and showed it to him. The ones she had made visible to me only, every single one. He looked at the screen. I saw the shock in his expression, heard the panic in his voice as he stammered. "Sienna, You ready to explain it?" I asked. He looked me in the eyes, but for the first time, he was speechless. Maybe he realized that with such hard evidence, nothing he said would convince me, so instead, he did the only thing he could, cut the cord completely. "I was wrong. I'm sorry, Sienna." Finally, he admitted it. I smiled, then asked, "So we're breaking up? You two don't have a problem with that, right? As I spoke, I stood up, ready to leave, but Jason suddenly grabbed my hand. The pain in his eyes was real. Even his tears weren't fake. He pleaded with me, every word sincere. Sienna, I'll handle things with Chloe. I swear you'll never have to see her again. If you're angry, if you hate me, if you want to curse me, I'll take it all. Or if you want compensation some other way, I'll make it happen. Just one thing, let's not break up. Sienna, we're about to get married. So he did remember we were about to get married. I suddenly found it laughable. He was always like this. When he was wrong, he wouldn't run from it. He'd face it, sincerely offer solutions, exactly the skills he'd mastered through years of experience at the negotiating table. He thought that would be enough to fix everything. What I hadn't expected was that he'd one day use those same tactics on me. I didn't want to tangle with him any further. I pulled my hand away and walked off. I blocked Jason on WeChat and deleted his contact. Then I set up a whitelist on my phone. Chloe really did disappear from my life. She left the lab, and all those cryptic targeted posts on her moments vanished too. Just as Jason had promised, clean, thorough, not a trace left behind. But I didn't feel any better. The way he handled Chloe was like someone dealing with a pet they had full control over, entitled, cold, and detached. It made me uncomfortable. Jason and I had known each other for many years, but only recently did I start to feel like I was truly getting to know him. The version of him I used to believe in, kind, respectful, considerate, felt more and more like an illusion. Jason didn't try to contact me for several days, disappearing cleanly as if he'd vanished altogether. But I knew him. He wouldn't give up so easily. So when the lab door opened and he walked in, I wasn't surprised. He looked charming as ever, effortlessly composed, greeting my lab mates like he belonged there. Sorry to interrupt, he said politely. It wasn't his first time visiting. Most of the people in my lab knew him, and I hadn't told anyone about our breakup. After all, it was a personal matter. Nothing to do with them. One of the guys, who was on friendly terms with Jason, even joked, "Hey Jason, here to pick up Sienna again after work?" Jason smiled and nodded, then looked over at me. Sienna? I stood up, giving him the opportunity to save face. Let's talk outside, he said. Sure, but there's no rush. He walked over to my desk and started to help tidy up my things, but I pushed his hand away. He didn't look embarrassed. Instead, he turned to the others and asked casually, "Anyone free tonight? I booked a table at Soirée. You've all talked about trying their food. This is the perfect chance." Soirée wasn't cheap. My lab mates looked shocked at first, then excited. They started teasing him. "Jason, what's the occasion? Must be something big for you to go all out like this." Jason smiled even wider, his eyes full of affection as he looked at me. "There is something big," he said. "Sienna and I are breaking up." I finished the sentence for him, quickly and clearly. I already knew what he was about to say, and to stop him from continuing, I figured I'd just say it myself. But the second those words left my mouth, the entire lab went silent. My lab mates all looked at each other, clearly awkward and unsure what to do. Jason's face darkened. He turned to me. "Sienna, I know you're still angry, but we're about to get married. We've already booked the venue. Even if you are mad, can't you forgive me just this once?" "Jason," I said calmly, "I wasn't even mad before, but now I'm starting to get a little pissed off. Do you really think this is the right place to be having this conversation?" His silence told me he knew it wasn't. But still, he insisted on having it anyway. Yet he insisted on making a big scene like this. What his intentions were, I understood completely. That's exactly why I didn't plan to let him get away with it. I asked him one last time, "If you really want to talk this out, we can step outside. So? Are you coming or not?" Maybe because the tension was getting too awkward, one of the junior lab mates tried to lighten the mood with a laugh. "Sienna, don't be like that. You're kind of scaring us. Look." Jason's face is pale. "Yeah, seriously, Sienna," another chimed in. Even if Jason messed up, he's always been like the perfect boyfriend. Devoted, capable, considerate. At least take that into account and give him some face. The one speaking was a junior I didn't interact with much. But he had interned at Jason's firm before, so it made sense he'd take Jason's side. Besides, Jason had always kept up a great public image. He was generous too, often treating the lab to coffee or snacks. So I wasn't surprised they were defending him. This was exactly why Jason chose to make our private matter public. He knew how to manipulate perception. But my business was mine, and I had no intention of letting anyone else weigh in. I looked coldly at the one who spoke and said calmly, "This is a personal matter. I'd appreciate it if outsiders didn't get involved." The junior awkwardly rubbed his nose and backed down, clearly uncomfortable. Just then, Jason suddenly dropped to his knees in front of me. He pulled out a diamond ring, his face full of emotion. "Sienna, I really messed up, but I swear, nothing like this will ever happen again. And if it does, you won't have to do a thing. I'll disappear from your life on my own. We've been together 8 years. I've always believed that meeting you was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. When you agreed to marry me, that was the happiest moment of my life. I love you. I love you more than anything." As he spoke, his eyes turned red. He took several deep breaths and his voice turned hoarse, like the words were choking in his throat, struggling to come out. "Please, don't leave me." He sounded so sincere. He wasn't putting on a show, but all I could see was how carefully he avoided specifics, how deliberately vague his words were. His whole posture made him look so small, so pitiful, like I was the one being cruel. But was that really the case? I found it all absurd. I was about to speak when someone else's voice cut in. "So after all this talking, you still haven't explained exactly what you did wrong?" At the sound of that voice, a young man in his 20s walked in from outside the lab. He was tall, lean, with sharply defined features and pale, porcelain-like skin. His face was so striking it was almost unreal, like a painting come to life. The moment he appeared, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. Everyone instinctively drew in a sharp gasp, clearly stunned by his presence. I was surprised too. I hadn't expected him to show up here. He smiled after finishing his sentence and looked at me with warmth. "Long time no see, Sienna," I nodded politely. "It's been a while, Ethan." The air between us suddenly felt tense, strange enough that everyone in the room turned to stare at me, especially Jason. His gaze was the most intense. "Sienna, who is this?" he asked, still smiling, but with unmistakable hostility in his voice. Even though he had never met Ethan before, he immediately sensed there was something between us. I didn't want to complicate things further, so I answered directly. "This is Ethan Fu. We went to high school together." Jason frowned. "You've never mentioned him before." "He moved overseas during our sophomore year. We weren't that close." The moment I said that, Ethan clearly looked like he wanted to say something to call me out on it, but he held back. I had a feeling he had his own reasons for being here. "Can you not make things worse?" My tone was firm. Ethan paused, clearly caught off guard. Then he rubbed the bridge of his nose and fell silent. Maybe seeing him back off so quickly gave Jason a sense of relief. His expression relaxed again. He stopped paying attention to Ethan and turned back to me. "Sienna," he said as I let out a soft sigh, "you came here to say something, right? Let's go talk outside." Just outside the lab was the university town's snack street, lined with narrow alleys and small cafes. I picked one I often went to and ordered an iced chocolate. "What would you like?" I asked Jason. "I'll have the same as you." I knew he didn't like sweet drinks, but I didn't remind him. There was no need. After ordering, I casually pulled a cigarette from my pocket. This cafe allowed smoking, which was one of the reasons I'd chosen it. As I lit up, I happened to glance at Jason and caught a fleeting look of annoyance on his face. His brows furrowed, and his expression was unmistakably one of displeasure. He clearly didn't like me smoking, but he didn't say anything. He just looked down and took a quiet sip of water. I'd never paid attention to little things like that before. But now that I noticed, I realized he'd probably always disliked my smoking. He just never showed it in front of me. I sighed and put the cigarette out. Jason looked surprised. "Why'd you stop? You love smoking. You don't like it, do you?" He looked pleasantly shocked. "Well, yeah, but you never said." "You've always minded, haven't you?" I said. "You could have just told me. I would have respected that." He seemed to pick up on the displeasure in my tone and quickly tried to shift the conversation. "It's not that big a deal. Anyway, that guy earlier, Ethan, you said he's your high school classmate, right? You two didn't seem that unfamiliar." He was trying to ask, tactfully, what exactly was going on between me and Ethan. I didn't dodge the question. "We used to have feelings for each other, A long time ago. Jason stayed silent for a while. Then he muttered, "That explains it." I didn't know exactly what he meant by that, and I didn't have the energy to press him. "Let's talk," I said. "Let's clear everything up in one go. Whatever it is you want to say, this is your chance. Say it now, and I'll listen. After that, we can decide where we go from here." Maybe my calmness gave him some courage. He sighed, then began. "I know you probably won't believe me, but I really don't have feelings for Chloe. The reason things happened with her." He chewed on his knuckle, clearly struggling to speak. After a long pause, he finally said, "It's because she reminds me of myself." I wasn't surprised. I had considered that possibility before, and once he got the first sentence out, the rest came easier. "Yes. She reminds me of myself," he said, with a bitter smile that was almost like a sob. "We came from the same kind of background, poor, small town. Neither of us ever left our hometowns until college. Remember that first time we all went to Starbucks after orientation? I didn't even know the difference between an Americano and a mocha. I just knew they sold coffee, and even the cheapest best cup cost nearly as much as what I spent on food in a whole day. I used to be top of my class, always number one, but once I got here I realized everyone was good. I didn't have any advantage. Around people like you, I always felt inferior. Especially when I was around you," he said. Then he seemed to remember something and gave a self-deprecating laugh. "Back in college it was obvious to everyone that I liked you. But I never dared admit it, not even to myself, let alone confess to you. Do you know why?" I stayed silent, so he answered himself. "Because we were from completely different worlds. You always had the best of everything. He never had to worry about money. But I was counting every penny, afraid I wouldn't have enough to eat, terrified I wouldn't be able to pay my tuition. It wasn't until I started working that I finally felt like I could stand beside you. Only then did I have the courage to tell you how I felt and try to be with you." Just then, the server arrived with our iced chocolates. Jason took his and drank a huge gulp, like he was downing a beer. I said nothing. In truth, I'd always known about Jason's insecurities. We'd known each other too long for me not to. I'd always sensed how he worked hard to keep up a certain image around me, constantly afraid that one misstep would expose something he didn't want seen. We never talked about money. He never mentioned his family, and I never asked. But still, he kept up appearances. So when he became a well-known figure in finance, an investment banker who earned in a month what most people made in a year, he dove headfirst into that glamorous world. Expensive meals, designer suits, luxury everything. That lifestyle was part of the job, but he didn't just adapt to it, he embraced it, maybe even enjoyed it. And that was fine. I never judged him for that. His choices were his own. But what he said next genuinely surprised me. "But even after we got together," he continued, "I realized the gap between us never really disappeared. I didn't want you to feel shortchanged, so every time we went on a date, I picked the nicest restaurants. I wore my best clothes. I always made sure I looked the part. But you never seemed to care. You never relied on me, and for a long time I didn't understand why. Later, I figured it out. It's because you've seen me at my worst. You remember who I was before all of this. So no matter how much money I make, how successful I become, you still see the guy I used to be. You were always indifferent, always distant, but I loved you. So I could only look up to you, quietly, humbly. I even suppressed parts of myself for your sake. I found it laughable, but I forced myself to stay calm and let him continue. I didn't like you smoking," he said. "But I kept quiet. I hated when you ignored my texts because you were in the lab. I hate waiting. It drives me crazy. But I held it all in for you. But the longer it went on, the more suffocated I felt. I needed an outlet. That's when Chloe showed up. She made things feel easy. I didn't have to pretend or suppress anything, so even though I knew it was wrong, I still couldn't stop myself." I thought I'd be furious hearing him say all that, but I wasn't. Maybe because I no longer had any expectations of him, my emotions stayed strangely calm. I even managed to smile. "So what exactly are you telling me? That I should wish you and Chloe happiness?" "No." His face twisted in pain, and maybe he heard the sarcasm in my voice, but he still tried to defend himself. "I just wanted you to know, I love you." I almost laughed. "So let me get this straight. being with me was so suffocating that you cheated on me with Chloe for comfort. And you're telling me this because you love me? I know it sounds ridiculous, even like an excuse, he said, but I'm human too. I have emotions, and I needed somewhere to let them out. I couldn't take it out on you, so I took it out on Chloe instead. I know it was wrong, but I couldn't control it. The more Jason spoke, the more pained he sounded, his words growing more pitiful, more self-indulgent. Meanwhile, I rested my chin on my hand, starting to feel drowsy. The chocolate I drank earlier was too sweet, and now it was making me sleepy. So I asked him, "Are you done?" He didn't answer. I took that as a yes and smiled slightly. "Then can I speak now?" "I understand what you're trying to say. You're saying that being in a relationship with me caused you a lot of pressure, right? Well then, what I don't get is, why didn't you ever talk to me about it? We've been together for years, and not once did you bring it up. Not even a hint." "Jason, I always thought our relationship was built on mutual respect, on equality. I thought you were okay with my habits, my way of doing things. But today, I finally realize you resented it. You really hated it. Sienna, I thought bringing it up would make you uncomfortable," he finally muttered, his voice sharp and strained. "Are you making me comfortable now?" I asked. My tone wasn't sarcastic. I genuinely didn't understand. "You say you made sacrifices, that you suppressed yourself, that it was so hard being with me. But did I know any of that? Did you ever tell me? Did you even try? You kept all of that bottled up until it festered, and then you used it to justify cheating, like I deserved to be punished for what you never had the courage to express. Is that it?" His silence said everything. I laughed bitterly. "I see. So yes, mission accomplished. You did punish me, Jason. I regret everything now. More than I've ever regretted anything. I honestly can't believe I ever liked you. My judgment was that bad." With that, I stood up, paid the check, and left. Jason didn't follow me. I think that was the moment our breakup became final, truly, irreversibly final. After that, life settled into a quiet rhythm. Lab, cafeteria, dorm, the same 3-point routine, day in and day out. And honestly, I found it peaceful. Comfortable, even. Not long after, I received news that my paper had been accepted by a top-tier journal in Zone A. It was a huge surprise. I'd worked on that paper for over a year. With this one accepted, I now had 4 Zone A publications. My dissertation had passed blind review. I had officially met all my graduation requirements. My advisor came to speak with me and asked what plans I had after graduation. I told him I'd probably start looking for a job. Research was painful, yes, but it was also fascinating. So I hoped to stay in academia or work in a research institution. He then asked if I was interested in staying at the university. I was stunned, truly. I hadn't dared hope for that. Our university was top tier, and I didn't have any overseas study experience. I didn't think I had a chance of staying. But my advisor said I had solid research output and that he was willing to help me fight for a position. And I knew, with his influence, if he supported me, my chances were very high. What I didn't expect was that he'd be willing to give such a rare opportunity to me. Positions like that were rare, even for someone as respected as he was. He patted my shoulder and told me to keep working hard. He said I had the right temperament for research, and that he truly admired me. He hoped I would become someone who could contribute something meaningful to science. I thanked him and began preparing for my graduation defense. Soon after, I passed the defense without issue. But I didn't leave the lab. I stayed and continued running data and wrapping up research. During that time, my advisor came to chat with me again about the job offer. Everything had basically been confirmed. All I had to do was go through the final interview and negotiation process to secure it. In the end, I got the position. The university gave me an associate professor track appointment. When the official announcement came out, I was over the moon. Everyone in the lab, especially the ones I was close with, started teasing me to treat them to a celebration. I happily agreed. Because I was so happy, I even invited a few fellow PhD candidates from other labs whom I was close with. That's when I saw Chloe again. She happened to be in the lab next door. I was a little surprised at first, but quickly realized it made sense. She wanted to continue her studies, so of course she had to find a new advisor. If she managed to get in based on her own merit, even if it meant ending up so close to me, I had no grounds to criticize her. I ignored her. But she called out, "Sienna." A few of our mutual acquaintances looked surprised. One of them asked me, "You two know each other?" I didn't want to explain. I just gave a quick nod, then turned back to my friends and said, "Let's all have dinner tonight." They quickly caught on and asked, "So it's official?" I nodded. One of them practically squealed, "Then we'll have to start calling you Professor Zhao." I laughed, genuinely. I didn't notice the dark expression on Chloe's face behind me. A few days later, anonymous posts started appearing on the university's forum, claiming I had an inappropriate relationship with my advisor. Those posts were quickly debunked in the comments. Anyone who knew us could tell how absurd the accusations were, so it didn't cause too much of a stir. But soon after, another thread appeared. This time, it wasn't about me and my advisor, it was about me and his son, Ethan Fu. It even mentioned that Ethan and I were high school classmates, and that we'd once had feelings for each other. The post claimed that I was the advisor's future daughter-in-law, and that's why he was determined to help me stay at the university. This one stirred up far more trouble than the last. Even though my close friends tried to refute it in the comments, pointing out that with my academic record, staying at the university was more than justified, there were still plenty of people spreading rumors. The situation quickly snowballed. My advisor never confronted me about it. He kept reminding me, calmly, "Those who are clean need not fear gossip." But I still felt guilty. A man who had gone his whole life with a spotless reputation was now being dragged into baseless rumors because of me. I knew I couldn't let this go. I started tracing the IP addresses of the posts. The ones I found had been sent from an internet cafe just off campus. I requested surveillance footage, but it turned out the terminal used was right in a blind spot. No face, no clear evidence. Still, I had a pretty strong suspicion of who was behind it. But without proof, I couldn't accuse anyone outright, and even if I did confront them, without evidence, they'd never admit it. Then one day I ran into Chloe again, outside the restroom. She was washing her hands. I found the timing unfortunate and dried my own hands quickly, intending to leave. But she called out to me, "Sienna, why do you always try to walk away the second you see me? Are you scared of me or something?" That made me stop. "Scared of what?" I asked coldly. "Scared of you inserting yourself into my relationship and picking up the man I threw away?" Her face went ghost white. I had no intention of arguing, so I turned to leave again. But she let out a sarcastic laugh, speaking just loudly enough for me to hear, though pretending it was to herself. "Acting like you're better than me, but the only reason you got to stay is because of your connections." I turned around to face her. Maybe my gaze was too sharp, because for a moment she looked unsettled, but still forced herself to hold my stare. "What are you looking at?" she snapped. "The whole forum's saying it, you and Professor Fu's son. That's why they let you stay. Stop pretending you're some high and mighty woman of the house. At the end of the day, you're leaning on a man just like the rest of us." I stared at her for a long moment. I used to think that while she had interfered in my relationship with Jason, she and I weren't truly connected. If anything, the one who deserved my anger was Jason. But now I understood, sometimes people could develop inexplicable and bitter hatred toward others, even without real cause. And Chloe, she really did hate me like that. I looked her in the eye and told her, every step I've taken to get to where I am today, everything I've achieved, I earned with my own abilities, not because of my family background, and definitely not because of any man. So, whoever's been spreading lies on the forum, better hope it wasn't you. Because if I find out it was, I will absolutely pursue legal action. Her face went pale, but she still tried to bluff her way through it, insisting she didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't waste any more words on her. I was already considering whether I should report it to the police. But just as I was hesitating, the truth finally came to light. It was Jason who reported Chloe. He told the school that she had fabricated rumors about me out of personal spite. He revoked her financial sponsorship and even posted a public statement on the forum. In his post, he openly admitted to cheating on me with Chloe, that I had found out and broken up with him, and that after he cut off contact with her, Chloe had grown bitter and retaliated by slandering me. After that, Chloe was pretty much ruined. Her academic path was completely cut off. She didn't dare show her face on campus anymore. Jason, on the other hand, did come looking for me, but I refused to see him. Some of our friends asked if I was being too harsh. After all, he did admit his mistakes and tried to make things right. Maybe he wasn't so bad. I just smiled and said nothing. The next time I heard any news about Jason, it was that he'd been hospitalized. He had been stabbed by Chloe. From what I heard, she'd knifed him in the chest and punctured his lung. He nearly didn't survive. He'd be bedridden for at least 6 months. The injury and the long recovery ended up costing him his job. He was laid off during a company restructuring. The money he'd earned was almost entirely eaten up by medical bills. Later, he asked one of our mutual friends if I would go visit him. I hesitated for a long time but eventually agreed. When I arrived, I almost didn't recognize him. Chloe hadn't just stabbed him, she'd slashed his face too. A jagged scar ran from his cheek all the way down to the base of his neck on the right side. He was disfigured. Lying there in that hospital bed, he looked truly pitiful. He even cried, saying he regretted our breakup every single day. His lung injury made it hard to cry. It pulled at his wound and triggered another coughing fit. The more he cried, the more pathetic he looked. But I didn't feel much of anything. Even when he looked up at me with those tear-filled eyes and asked if I could give him one more chance, I just drifted into my thoughts. When I came back to myself, I simply shook my head. "Why not?" he asked. "I've already been punished. Even if you hate me, can't you let it go now that I've suffered so much?" He paused, then added bitterly, "Those posts Chloe made. You were the one who pushed her, weren't you? You were the one who egged her on, then turned around and reported her yourself. You wanted to use that to win me back, to prove you'd moved on from your anger, right? Otherwise, why would she have gone so insane trying to drag us both down together?" He didn't say another word, but I laughed, because deep down, I'd already suspected this, and now he'd just confirmed it. Only, I didn't feel any joy in being right. Looking at the man in front of me, I said, "Jason, I don't feel happy. Whatever happened between you and Chloe, whether it ended well or horribly, I don't feel anything at all, because neither of you has anything to do with me anymore." Then I walked out of the hospital room. Whatever reaction Jason had after that, I didn't care, because that was the last time I'd ever see him. What happened to them was no longer my concern. I had a new life of my own,